Hey there, this is Beau Bullock from Black Hills Information Security here with Simply Cyber today to talk to you about why the cloud isn't secure, and I'm going to give you some proof. Some like to say the cloud is secure by default. That phrase is completely false and has ruined the security programs of many organizations. I've had the pleasure of teaching thousands of people how to break into cloud environments, and this particular video is not about how to breach necessarily. What this video is about is I want to show you how oftentimes cloud compromise occurs before an attacker writes a single exploit. Whenever organizations go to move to the cloud, oftentimes they will just leave the default settings enabled. Those defaults oftentimes are the things that leave open doors for attackers to break in. Modern cloud breaches rarely start with hacking and, like elite, computer cyber ninjas trying to break in. Oftentimes what it is just default misconfigurations that haven't been changed, and oftentimes over trust in the cloud provider by organizations. So if your security strategy assumes that your cloud provider is protecting your data for you, then hopefully this video will help open your eyes a bit. For the past 12 years, I've been performing penetration tests and red team assessments for many organizations for a company called Black Hills Information Security. And day in and day out, I get to actually attack cloud environments on a regular basis. Every single week, I'm usually testing a brand new company, and I get to break in via the latest techniques. And so I get to see a lot of the newer attack paths, a lot of the attack paths that actual threat actors are using as well. One of the first things I want to talk about is software as a service, or SaaS. When you think about SaaS, think about productivity software. Think things like your email or your file sharing services. Microsoft 365 is one of the largest SaaS providers out there, and it's one of the biggest ones that we tend to find weaknesses in a lot of organizations. So to start out, I want to talk about some common misconfigurations we see in Microsoft 365 services. One of the big ones, first, right off the bat, is password issues. We see that across the board, across many organizations, just weak passwords in general, the ability for us to password spray accounts, and then password reuse. So a lot of people tend to still reuse passwords. And one of the biggest risks is that the user or the employee goes and uses their corporate login on some third-party site. The third-party site gets breached, and now all of a sudden an attacker has a credential that is reusable not only on their personal account, but also their corporate work account. Another common method that attackers use to get initial access to organizations is by discovering credentials that have just literally been posted publicly on the internet. Now you might ask, why would anybody ever do that? And the answer is that a lot of times what happens is when developers are writing code, a lot of times they will be testing something out with a set of credentials, and they will put credentials in the code itself and then publish it publicly to the internet. And that's something that a lot of us on the offensive side and actual threat actors are looking for to break into organizations. Another thing is the overpermissioning of accounts. So once an attacker actually gets access, a lot of times the actual accounts that they get access to are overpermissioned, meaning that they have been given access to more than they really should have. When you think about permissioning accounts, think about least privilege. You only want to give users the exact permissions that they should have to do their job. Another huge issue, and this is something that's still extremely common, is phishing. And, with cloud, it has kind of shifted a little bit. So with, traditional phishing methods, one of the biggest things was that we were trying to get a payload to detonate on somebody's computer system, right? And now a lot of the shift has actually moved towards session-based phishing, as opposed to getting a session on somebody's system. We're now trying to get a session in their cloud account. And a lot of that looks like token theft. So we tend to use phishing frameworks just like real attackers, and can capture tokens that are used to authenticate to that person's account and then become them in the web browser. Microsoft 365 has a ton of default settings that leave organizations vulnerable. First off, by default, literally any user in your tenant can invite guest users to your tenant. What are guest users? Guest users are external users, and they could literally be any random Gmail account, any other third-party email service can be invited as a user of your tenant. That can lead to persistence for attackers. They can maintain access to your tenant, and potentially lead to other escalation opportunities when performed in combination with other attacks. Another default setting revolves around what are known as applications. Now, these applications are not your standard piece of software you would install on a computer. Applications in the cloud are related to what is known as OAuth-based authentication. And these applications can actually be given permissions to carry out certain tasks in the cloud. For example, you can give an application the ability to read somebody's email, or you can give an application the ability to upload a file to SharePoint, in addition to many other permissions as well. Now, by default, the thing is, in Microsoft 365, any user in your tenant can actually create these applications. Not only can they create these applications, but they can also consent to applications. And what consent means is that a user actually gives permission on behalf of themselves to the application to carry out that permission, like reading email on their account. So for example, an attacker and another tenant could create an application, send a link that's a Microsoft.com link to your user in your tenant. They click consent on that link, and now all of a sudden that attacker has the ability to read their email. So the ability to create these applications, the ability to consent to them, they can lead to persistence methods for attackers in a tenant. They can lead to phishing attacks as well. Another default Microsoft 365 setting is that any user can create groups. They can create both Microsoft 365 groups by default and security groups by default. Whenever a user goes and creates a Teams chat in your tenant, if they go and create a brand new Teams channel, what that's going to do is it's going to create a SharePoint site, but it's also going to create a group. And with that group, they can give permissions like the ability to join it, meaning a public group. And oftentimes what we'll see in organizations is just a ton of these public groups. What that leads to is that after we get access to an account, we just enumerate all of the groups that are public in that tenant and then just go join them. Because oftentimes what will happen is we will find a group like an IT Teams chat where we can just go join that Teams channel and see their IT team chatting back and forth. A lot of times we'll find that they're passing clear text passwords in the chat itself. Another major problem area we see in a lot of cloud tenants are conditional access policy misconfigurations. Now, conditional access policies are the way that organizations can actually establish when and where users are actually allowed to authenticate. And there's a lot of settings that can go into these. For example, you can establish if a user is allowed to authenticate from a certain IP space, if they have to have a certain device type, what application they're actually using. You can create rules around all of this stuff. And ultimately, this helps organizations, well, one, just prevent access from certain locations, but also enforce multi-factor authentication. Now, what we often find with a lot of organizations is that multi-factor authentication is not actually covering every single endpoint. And in the cloud, this is a huge problem area because there's a lot of different ways to authenticate to cloud providers. There's not just one login portal that your users are going to go to. There's also multiple different APIs. In the Microsoft world, think, for example, like the Microsoft Graph API. There's also the Service Management API. There are legacy protocols. You have things like Exchange Web Services. You have SMTP. You have various ways to configure policies around each one of these settings. And a lot of times we see that there are certain places that just aren't covered. A good example is, whenever an organization has to create an exclusion for somebody in the organization, for example, maybe like the C-suite, somebody like the CEO or CIO wants to have single factor access to their email on their phone. A lot of times those rules get generated to cover everybody and not just the CEO or CIO or whoever it is that it should be applied to. And so what ends up happening is we compromise an account via phishing or password spraying, and then we find that there's single factor access on one specific portal due to conditional access policy misconfigurations. In addition to software as a service, many organizations are using cloud providers to deploy infrastructure as a service. When you think about infrastructure as a service, think about things like virtual machines, databases, storage accounts, web applications, things like that. A huge problem area with cloud infrastructure is how easy it is to deploy resources to be publicly accessible via the internet. Anytime you hear about somebody getting hacked on the news, oftentimes it's the fact that they left an S3 bucket exposed to the internet and put some files in it that maybe they shouldn't have. A lot of times you'll see where organizations have credit card numbers or social security numbers just in a publicly accessible file share of sorts. That's essentially what these storage accounts are. But not only storage accounts. You can deploy web applications to be publicly accessible to the internet. You can deploy databases to be publicly accessible to the internet. So one of the biggest things that I look for whenever I'm attacking an environment is, well, one, can I find those those publicly exposed resources from the outside during an initial reconnaissance phase without ever authenticating the organization. But then later on in testing, once we are actually authenticated, oftentimes we can list out every single resource and then check them from the outside to determine if we can actually access them publicly. One of the most common ways that we actually pivot and escalate privileges within a cloud environment is whenever we discover additional credentials. And oftentimes those credentials are found just literally attached to the configurations or even metadata of resources that have already been deployed in that account. For example, something like a Lambda function. Oftentimes an administrator will deploy a Lambda function and they will set environment variables with credentials hard-coded to those environment variables so they're accessible whenever that Lambda function needs them. Now, there are actually secure ways to deploy and store credentials within a cloud environment, but a lot of organizations are still hard coding credentials within the actual configurations themselves, which is not good. Another huge hurdle that a lot of organizations are facing when dealing with cloud infrastructure is just scale. A lot of cloud environments become massive very, very quickly and can develop to have millions of resources in a very short time. And when you deal with a network of that size, you have to automate. You have to have tools in place that help you automate not only assessing those resources, but also logging what's happening. And there's a lot of open source tools out there that can help us analyze environments to help organizations understand their security issues with these networks. Even major companies don't get cloud security right 100% of the time. Microsoft themselves were hacked a couple years ago by a nation-state threat actor called Midnight Blizzard, who did a password spray attack against Microsoft accounts. They got access to their development tenant and then ultimately pivoted over to their production tenant, where they maintain access for 2 months. And if a company like Microsoft can get hacked, we can all get hacked. It's not just about like malware sophistication. It's about identity in most cases, and also just getting that initial access via common attacks like phishing and password spray. Cloud security is not about having no public resources ever or trusting that your cloud provider is going to protect you. Cloud security is about having explicit identity boundaries, getting rid of a lot of those common default configurations that leave organizations insecure, least privilege that's enforced, not just aspirational, continuous validation, and not just annual audits. So to summarize, the cloud isn't insecure because it's necessarily weak. It's insecure because we treat configuration like paperwork instead of attack surface. Question the defaults, review identity, and assume exposure until proven otherwise. If you want to learn how to hack into cloud environments, I teach a class called Breaching the Cloud through Antisyphon training, where I teach how to perform initial reconnaissance against cloud environments, how to get that initial access, how to pivot and escalate, how to establish persistence, and ultimately how to exfiltrate data from cloud environments. If you're interested, visit antisyphontraining.com. There's on-demand options and live training throughout the year as well. Thank you.